So Elvira says, well, what's it like inside? He says, oh, I have no idea. I just drop the eggs on the veranda and I move on. She said, well, you got to look inside to see if it's a house worth building. He says, I can't ask to go inside. I'm an egg deliverer. She said, leave it to me. So they go up to Winnipeg from Steinbach. She knocks on the door and says, do you mind if we have a look around? My husband here, Mel, wants to build a home just like this in Steinbach, and it will be our new wedding gift. And the guy says, come on in. It was Bill Mosienko. Bill Mosienko holds the record for the fastest hat trick in NHL history. He scored 3 goals in 21 seconds. And that just proves he's a good egg. Oh, sorry, there's a pun.
Get ready for the Rod Pedersen Show.
And what was it like coaching the Panthers in the 90s at the old Miami Arena? And he said it was in a bad end of town, and the police told him, when you come to a red light around the arena, don't stop. Keep rolling through because they'll come and steal your car. And he was driving an 86 Toyota Corolla. So he said he came up to a red light, and he didn't stop. He rolled through the red intersection, and some local yelled at him, don't worry, we wouldn't steal that piece of garbage.
This is the Rod Pedersen Show.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the RP Show. Please do not adjust your sets. It's a bit of a different look. We're coming to you from Chicago, that title in town. Same great show, though, live across Canada on the Game Plus television network and live streaming as well. Special guest today, going to be joining us right out of the chute. Hang on. AJ Jakubec, the voice of Ottawa. Coming up in hour 2, Mike Richards, the voice of Mike Richards, the Mike Richards. And coming up in our Quick Six show topics today, NFL leftovers, NHL leftovers. Our poll question has to do with the NHL. Huge news out of the CFL. Andrew Harris is joining the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And the College Football National Championship is tonight. So, a lot to get to. AJ Jakubec joins us. He's been zipping all over the continent. Looks like he's back home in the nation's capital. AJ, voice of the REDBLACKS and everything else Ottawa related. What's up, my brother?
Oh, just busy times. Gotta love it. Only, what do we have? 4 more football games left until CFL season starts. So certainly going to get the most of these next couple of weeks leading into the Super Bowl.
You are absolutely counting it down and reading my mind, by the way. So, guys, can you hit the Quick Six show horn? And we'll get into today's topics. Please and thank you. Okay. AJ, we're going to start with the NFL. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills will take on Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game next Sunday for their 4th playoff matchup in 5 years. Josh Allen ran for 2 touchdowns, and the Bills beat Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens 27-25 in a divisional game on Sunday. The Chiefs had defeated the Bills in 3 straight playoff games. And it'll be Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, and the Philadelphia Eagles hosting Jaden Daniels and AJ's Washington Commanders in the NFC title game. Also next Sunday, the Eagles advanced with a 28-22 victory over the Los Angeles Rams Sunday. They'll be home next week because the 6th-seeded Commanders upset the number 1 seed Detroit Lions 45-31 Saturday night. So, AJ, after a weird wild card weekend and blowouts and just a weird... This one was quite a weekend of football. Great games on Sunday. Your team won. Everybody, he's a Commanders fan, okay? And Redskins before that. Are you as shocked as everybody is? Come on. So Washington's moving on to the NFC title game.
I thought they had a 50-50 chance of beating Tampa Bay, and they got it done. And that was kind of a 50-50 game. It was a great game. It was the only game that really salvage wildcard weekend. But yeah, to beat the Lions, and especially in the manner that they did, was a little bit stunning. So and now you kind of look at the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's a really good team. They're dominant in the trenches. I do think, like, if I take my Washington hat off, I would probably pick the Eagles. But if I look at things from a Commander standpoint, I feel like, well, if you beat Detroit, why can't you beat the Philadelphia Eagles? So we'll wait and see. I mean, Philly's so dominant in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and that's what ended up winning them the game against the LA Rams. But I love just what Washington is bringing, and it starts at the top. They're a mess for 30 years under Dan Snyder. They finally got out of that, and with Josh Harris and this new ownership group, it just feels like the stench of those 3 decades finally gone. You've got an aggressive head coach. To me, aggressive but not reckless. That was the difference in that game between Washington and Detroit. To me, there were just too many reckless decisions on the other side with trick plays and everything you saw from the Lions. Whereas Dan Quinn, he was making aggressive but smart decisions to gamble on 4th and short. And of course, you got a franchise quarterback, which they just haven't had in forever. I mean, even, I became a fan in 1982, kind of partway through that season. They won the Super Bowl that year. They had Joe Theismann. Then he got hurt brutally on that Monday Night Football game against Lawrence Taylor and the Giants. Doug Williams led them to the next Super Bowl. Then it was Mark Rippon, who's got the Canadian roots, of course. And they've been searching for a quarterback ever since. So it looks like they've got one in Jaden Daniels, not just because of what he does athletically, but his poise is just something to watch. So they've got a chance. Wow. I still think the Eagles win, but I wouldn't count the Commanders out.
Of course they got a chance. They're in the game. They're in the game. And I think Detroit was favored by 8 on Saturday night. So look, I want to walk this back for a second. Just for those that have just tuned in, the Washington Commanders are AJ's team. He just said they have been for over 40 years. So let me tell you something. So I'm in Chicago on a birthday trip. Serena got it for me in December. Mike and Joanne Lee, good friends of ours from Saskatchewan, are kind of the reason behind it. But AJ.
Awesome.
I'm in the Blackhawks. Yes, been amazing. I was in the Blackhawks alumni suite Saturday night watching the Vegas Golden Knights and the Blackhawks. Chris Chelios is supposed to be hosting this. He actually said that. He goes, my job is hosting this box. It's a pretty good job. I just have to be me. And then he said, I invited a couple of Western Canadian guys, Blackhawks alum in. They happen to be Grant Mulvey and Kyle Calder. A story for another time. But as your Commanders were pulling away from the Detroit Lions in that game, Chelios is glued to the television to the point that Chris Chelios stood up. He's like, guys, I apologize. I know I'm supposed to be watching the game. I'm supposed to be hosting you, but I lived in Detroit for 20 years. That's my team. And then he spat and he's like, they're cursed. So if you're a Lions fan, of which, isn't it amazing how many have come out of the woodwork? There's only one that I knew until the last couple of years that admitted it. Dustin Nielsen, the voice of the CFL on TSN, was the only Detroit Lions fan that I knew. But AJ, just look at it. Kid, I said to Chelly at halftime, it's Chelly now, by the way, we're tight. I said, a lot of football left, Chelly. They never challenged, AJ. They never challenged. That was a complete win by Washington in Detroit. If you're a Detroit fan, how do you handle this?
Honestly, I feel for Lions fans. I really do, because they're long suffering. I mean, they've never even been to a Super Bowl, and it had just been so long for them to really have quality teams. And now they've got a team that goes 15-2. They're basically unstoppable on offense, and quite frankly, I just think they beat themselves. It could have been a game. Now, look, Detroit couldn't get a stop. They've got a ton of injuries on defense. I get that. But Washington couldn't get a stop either. And they just beat themselves with bad turnovers, with bad decisions in terms of some of those trick plays. And they just kept it simple and run the ball like the Eagles did. The Eagles kept it simple. They didn't overthink things. Saquon Barkley, they just gave him the rock, and he did the rest. Had they done that with their 1-2 punch, I have no doubt that at the very least, we're talking about a game that goes down to the last possession. But I thought they overthought things a little bit. And in the end, Washington's moving on.
What the heck's going off there? Is that your alarm clock?
That's a doorbell. Okay, I have no idea who's at the door.
I was going to say, get your DoorDash if you have to, AJ. Okay, we could sit here for 2 hours and talk about the NFL, but Mike Richardson's coming up in hour 2, and we'll get around to that. Kevin the Medium's checked in from Calgary. He says, good morning, RP peeps. How can anyone say that McSlappy-Face doesn't deserve a suspension? 2 games ago, he did the exact same thing. Take off your hero glasses. We'll go back to Connor McDavid in a second. Here's your NHL leftovers coming out of just Sunday. Jakubec made 2 highlight reel saves in overtime, and Patrick Laine scored at 3:20 of the extra session as the Montreal Canadiens beat the visiting New York Rangers 5-4. Brendan Gallagher, Christian Dvorak, Nick Suzuki, and Juraj Slafkovsky also scored for the Habs, who moved within a point of an NHL wildcard berth and are the best team in the NHL since December 17th. Jason Robertson had a goal and an assist, and the Dallas Stars beat the visiting Detroit Red Wings 4-1. And the Ottawa Senators, with goals from Artem Zub and Zach Ostapchuk, beat the host New Jersey Devils 2-1. We'll get to the McDavid thing in a second, but I posted to our social media channels that the Montreal Canadiens are the best team. I think it's 12-3-1 since December 17th. Best team in the NHL in the last month. And there's people writing in saying, you misspelled Senators, i.e. we've been pretty good too. What do you think of this race, AJ, entering a brand new week of pretty exciting NHL hockey?
Yeah, I mean, it's been fascinating to watch the East because you had a point in time where the 7th and 8th place teams were barely over 500, and all of a sudden a bunch of teams have caught fire. Columbus has been red hot. Montreal's been red hot. The Ottawa Senators have been red hot. Detroit has played a lot better, although they've lost a couple in a row since Todd McClellan replaced Eric Lalonde as head coach. So now all of a sudden it feels like, okay, we've got a legit race, and maybe you will need 90 points and not 84, 85 to make the playoffs in the East. I'll address the Ottawa Senators. This was a massive weekend for them. They hadn't had a point when trailing after 2 periods. And that was the thing. They're a good team with the lead, but they've really struggled in games where they've fallen behind. They didn't have a point when trailing after 2 periods. And they outplayed Boston for the majority of that hockey game and found a way down 5-3 in that game. And, got the 5-4 goal. Josh Norris scores with 12 seconds to go, and they win it in the shootout. And that place was electric. It's Canadian Tire Center in recent years has not been, the old madhouse on Madison. I'll tell you that. I went to 3 games at the Chicago Stadium in 1994, back when Chris Chelios was playing for the Chicago Blackhawks, and that's one of the best atmospheres I've ever experienced in sports. But Ottawa's not typically known like that. Well, it was jumping on Saturday. It was a playoff type atmosphere and intensity. There were fights, there were hits, there were scrums, and there were a lot of goals. And the Ottawa Senators found their way back in that game, and they won. And it felt like maybe a turning point game. And to follow that up, you play essentially 19 hours later. You finish at 6 o'clock on Saturday. You jump on a jet and you go to New Jersey and you play at 1 o'clock the next day. And they played kind of your prototypical road game to beat the Devils. To me, this Senators team, it looks like they've turned the corner. It looks like they've figured out how to win games under Travis Green. You've got 7 shutouts from the group this year. But I think more importantly, you've got, since Linus Ullmark has been hurt, that felt like a situation, well, who's going to win some games for them? And with Anton Forsberg winning yesterday, and then, of course, Levi Merilainen's been red hot, it shows that Ottawa maybe does have some goaltending depth, and they certainly look like they've got their goaltender of the future in Merilainen. So it looks pretty good right now for Ottawa, but
that's good.
Still a long ways to go. And yeah, on the Habs, I mean, what a run. You look at, it's not just the wins, it's the fact that they've been beating really good teams and really good teams on the road. Tampa Bay, Florida, they beat Dallas on the road. They beat Colorado. They beat Vegas. I mean, that's 5 really good road wins since Christmas. So, we'll see if they're for real. Just watching and hearing about the Montreal Canadiens, and of course they got their show on Crave, the rebuild. It felt like this was a team that was just trying to play meaningful games in March. Well, maybe they're going to play some meaningful games into April, and even into late April, the way they're going. I'd love to see both Ottawa and Montreal make the playoffs, and we'll see if they can keep things up here in the last few months.
It would be wild if they do. And we've got a few minutes here before we break, and we'll get to the huge CFL news after the break. But a couple things. You got Ottawa, they got the new coach this year, obviously in Travis Green. They brought in Staios, or gave him the GM title last year, and brought in Dave Poulin from TSN. Remember all the whining? They weren't good immediately last year, right? And you've worked for a lot of teams, as have I. It's okay, not that hard to ignore the noise. I feel we could ignore the noise. You just worry that your president or your team owner isn't listening to the fans. Because God knows, I've been called into those offices. I don't know if you have, but they got the stack. The fans are saying this. I don't care. Do you know that we're on the right track? Because we know that we are, right? Ottawa clearly is. Montreal is. And people are giving Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes a lot of kudos. Now, here in Chicago, listen, interesting. You and I got to talk about you going to Chicago Stadium. And I didn't know that story. But if you say that it was one of your best experiences in sports, AJ, I believe it. Because Saturday night here against Vegas, Chicago is by far the worst team in the NHL, but you know that. There's 19,000 people jamming the United Center. And we're all inside yipping with Chelios when the lights came down and the Blackhawks came onto the ice, and Chelios was like, we got to get outside and watch the anthem. It's a thing here. That guy sang the anthem, AJ, from his toes. The walls were shaking in the United Center, and the Blackhawks came out and won 5-2. And Bedard was pretty good. He had an assist, 3 shots on goal. But it's still a thing. The Chicago Blackhawks are a thing in this town. Forget about that they're the worst team in the NHL again. So I can't imagine what it was like in '94 in a tighter place with the acoustics and everything. It was amazing Saturday night. And if we'd only come for one game, I'd have been fine. But we're going to another game tonight. Carolina's here. I don't expect the same capacity the same crowd or the same atmosphere, but maybe it will be. I don't know. You know how you can pick up a vibe in the building? You've been in so many, whether you're calling it or just as a fan. This thing was like shaking my skin in Chicago Saturday night. It was unbelievable. I'll have loved every second of being here, except for the cold, -24 with the wind chill. I know it's nothing like what they're putting up with on the Canadian prairie, but still colder than I like. We're going to take a timeout and continue with today's sports topics with AJ Jakubec from Ottawa in a moment here on the Game Plus Television Network, streaming live and podcast where the best podcasts are found.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients. yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
We are live from Chicago, where that would be frozen if we were getting a shot from outside. But that's the RPShow studio from Florida. And by the way, it may take weeks, months, or even years to get the call to be a stem cell donor. Saving lives takes commitment and dedication, just like being a hockey player. Give hope to patients in Canada. Register online at blood.ca/get swabbed and spread the word amongst your family and friends. We are broadcasting from Chicago. That's where I am. Moose is not available. He's broadcasting provincial men's and women's curling. AJ Jakubec, the voice of the REDBLACKS, joining us from Ottawa. And before we jump into the CFL, really big CFL news of the day. You were just in Florida for the Orange Bowl, and I never quite figured out if you were a Penn State fan or a Notre Dame fan. I should have asked, AJ. That's why you came down. Notre Dame obviously won. How was it? How was the Orange Bowl?
I watched it from a bar in Orlando. I went to the Magic game for $57. The prices
Glad I
were
didn't meet
insane,
you,
Roddy. The prices were insane. I landed. I think they're about $440 when I took off. I was hoping to get it about $350 or less, and I thought, well, it's game day. Hopefully, when I land, it's going to be cheaper. It was $600 when I landed. I went for a bite to eat. It was $700 and I took a knee. So I went to see a $57 basketball game. And sadly, it probably was worth about $27. That wasn't a very good Orlando Magic Minnesota game I saw. It was good the next night when I saw Giannis. But no, I watched the tail end at the bar, and I'm not a fan of either Penn State or Notre Dame. I just, like, for me, growing up in the 80s, watching college football back before there was a playoff and they had a ridiculous system, and it's hard to think they're going to be looking back years from now and saying they actually picked their national champion just by a poll. It was ridiculous. But I always watched the Rose Bowl and I watched the Orange Bowl. So one day I'll get there, Roddy, but it wasn't going to be this year.
Those ticket prices don't drop, man. They used to. They don't anymore. So I haven't talked to you since. I didn't know that you didn't end up coming to Miami Gardens, but you made the wise choice for sure. So we'll get to the national championship, which is tonight, by the way, Notre Dame versus OSU, and OSU is favored by 8.5, the sports books I see. But what a lot of people have come here to discuss today, and AJ is a CFL guy, voice of the REDBLACKS. He's from Edmonton. Point 3 of our quick six. Andrew Harris is back in the CFL. The Saskatchewan Roughriders hired the league's all-time leading Canadian rusher as their running backs coach today. The move reunites Trevor Harris with AJ Ouellette. The move reunites Andrew Harris with Riders running back AJ Ouellette. I just realized this is going to be very confusing for Dave Thomas, the voice of the Rough Riders. Thomas, Harris, hands off to Harris. You know what I mean? The two were teammates with the Toronto Argonauts in 2022-23, winning a Grey Cup their first year together. That was the fourth Grey Cup title of Andrew Harris's illustrious CFL career. Now listen, AJ, you know we don't shy away from controversy here, and you're the neutral guy being from Ottawa. But when Andrew Harris got nailed for a positive PED test, I was still the voice of the Rough Riders. And oh boy, did we have fun with that one over in Saskatchewan, to the point that the Bombers called me and said, would you guys mind laying off? And I actually did. I did, because I'm not a jerk. But the other guys never did. They never did. And they've been calling out Andrew Harris ever since he left Winnipeg and then went to the Argos and won a Grey Cup. Now, he's a Rough Rider. The reaction has been delicious today. Oh, my God. I'm like, where are the haters now? Of course, 90% saying, welcome to Rider Nation, Andrew. But it's kind of a fun story. And to be honest, AJ, pretty much out of nowhere, too. At least it was for me.
Well, he was playing senior hockey in Ontario. By the way, I love the senior hockey circuit. I've been going to games here the last couple of years in senior hockey, and it's fantastic hockey. And I'm hoping, because like I grew up in an era where senior hockey had kind of died in the 80s. I'd heard stories about how big it was even in the 70s, but great to see Andrew Harris. He looked pretty good, scoring a couple of goals there in the, I think the Western Senior League here in Ontario. So great to see he's going back to football. Look, that's just the CFL, isn't it? I mean, it's such a small league. There's 9 teams, and somewhere along the lines, if you're a good football guy, whether it's a player, whether it's a coach, whether it's in personnel, you're probably going to be working for a team that you're a rival for at some point. And that's the beauty of the CFL. I mean, who would have thought Rick Campbell, not that it's a rivalry, Ottawa and BC, but who would have thought that Rick Campbell would be back in Ottawa as a special teams coach working under Bob Dice 6 years after the reverse was happening, with Bob Dice working under Rick Campbell. That's the beauty of this league, and it's part of the reason why I love it so much, is because you get stuff like that.
Well, have you ever had another team? Because you got passion like me, dude. I put you right up there with me. Have you ever had a team call and just say, lay off? Because the Bombers did. And to be honest, in retrospect, I kind of wish that I hadn't. Because ever since I left the Rough Riders, the Bombers have become the bullies, and they bully me. They tag me in things that I've said, that, freezing cold takes. I wish I hadn't listened to them, but I'm also not a jerk. Have you ever had a team call you and just say, back off?
I can't think of a team. I know I had some conversations with the Western Hockey League about a couple of different things. I got into it with a fan. That was not, I swear to God, I'm in Prince George. And you know where the broadcast booth is in Prince George.
I think I had the same guy. Yep.
And essentially, it's year one of the Oil Kings. They're not beating anybody. And they go up to Prince George. They're winning 5-0. I'm not saying anything bad about Prince George or the team or anything like that. But I'm just getting excited on some Oil King goals. There weren't a lot of them that year. And this guy turns around middle of the play and he's in my face. So I took a commercial break. Only time I've ever done it. I took a commercial break in the middle of the play, and I was giving it right back to the guy. And somehow the Cougars, who were a bad team and they're bad off the ice back then as well, somehow the Cougars thought that was my fault, that their fan came and yelled at me while I'm doing a broadcast right in the middle of the game. So, I wasn't going to take any of that nonsense. And, the Western Hockey League called me about it. They called me about some complaints about officiating as well, but it was all good. I can't think of a team doing that though, Roddy.
Okay, gotcha. I had an altercation with that very same guy in Prince George. I'm like, buddy, move. I can't move where I am, okay? This is the broadcast booth, so maybe you want to move.
Yeah.
Move
your
anyways, you
seats
get
if
it.
you don't like it.
Exactly. Okay. Everybody's having fun writing in with comments about what we've been talking about here already. NHL, CFL, NFL, the Andrew Harris to Saskatchewan thing, which on the coldest day of the year in Saskatchewan, they say hell has frozen over, that in fact Andrew Harris is a Rough Rider. But I want to, AJ's only with us for another 5 or so minutes. So Kirk in Toronto is watching on Game Plus TV. He writes in, he says, "Hey, Rod, how is Madison Avenue, the Madhouse on Madison?" As that was the moniker for the old Chicago Stadium, which I visited every year from 1988 to 1994, last year of the Great Old Barn. Well, they call this new place the Madhouse on Madison, too. Obviously, the Chicago Stadium doesn't stand anymore. But listen, I want to spend some time on this. As I would say, you and I are both hockey guys from way back. So I'm watching the game with Blackhawk alumni. This is a legit hockey town. I love Sunrise, but it's not, and it never will be. We're not sitting amongst former Panthers talking about the game. I'm with former Blackhawks. And AJ, they were nitpicking every move Bedard made. That's just what they do. That wouldn't surprise you because your dad's one. Your dad is one of these guys. You know what I mean? I kind of feel bad for Bedard because he lost his childhood at age 14, becoming the exceptional player. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders every single day. Everybody's watching his every move, and he's on a terrible team with nobody to play with. I don't know. What's your take on Bedard? I feel sorry for him, but that's probably a very rare perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reality of today's NHL with 32 teams, and when you go to the bottom team, they're not very good. There's a long climb from the very bottom to get to even mediocrity and an average team. Seen that in Ottawa. I mean, this is 7 straight years of missing the playoffs, so it takes time to build a roster. It takes time to get rid of some of the losing culture. There's a lot that goes into it. I'm hoping I'd love to see Matthew Schaefer. I was so impressed doing the World Juniors this year. And he didn't play much, unfortunately, because of injury. And it felt like Canada's hopes went down the tubes as soon as he got hurt in that first period of the game against Latvia. But through the 3 pre-tournament games, the first game against Finland, and that first period against Latvia, Matthew Schaefer was far and away for me the best player on Team Canada. I'd love to see him either in San Jose or Chicago to pair up with the franchise forward in either Celebrini or Bedard, because if you've got that anchor young defenseman that can play 10 to 15 years in the league, that will certainly help his cause. But yeah, it's got to be tough. It's got to be frustrating for sure. Still a heck of a player, a heck of a talent, but with 32 teams, that's the issue with the best player going. It took McDavid a while before he got to the playoffs and starting making runs. I mean, he's 28 years old now, and they've been to the Stanley Cup Finals once, and they still have a roster that's got some holes. I like the Oilers. They're still my favorite to win the Stanley Cup, but they got a lot of holes on that roster that they have to fix between now and the trade deadline. So it takes time and patience, and sometimes fans and certainly management don't have that, and certainly I don't know the reasoning, but they certainly lost their patience with Luke Richardson and went in a different direction there. So we'll see. I mean, they've climbed out of the basement, but there's going to be a long haul and some lean years when it comes to the Blackhawks, and you can't take any shortcuts. It's one thing I learned. Ottawa tried to do it. They gave up draft picks for DeBrincat and Chychrun. And, Chychrun was a better fit in Washington. They already had 2 left shot defensemen that are playing big minutes here in Ottawa. They tried to move him to the right side. And I think he's just a better fit in Washington. And DeBrincat didn't want to be here. So they gave up 2 first-rounders for that and set themselves back a little bit. So you can't take any shortcuts and think that you're just going to magically speed up the rebuild if you're trying to win now.
Yeah. Hey, one more point before I let you go. The Edmonton Oilers, this is point 4. The Edmonton Oilers and Vancouver Canucks may learn today if Connor McDavid and Tyler Myers receive additional discipline from the NHL for their match penalties assessed Saturday night in the dying seconds of the Canucks' 3-2 home win. McDavid cross-checked the Canucks' Connor Garland with 3 seconds to go in the game. Myers slashed the Oilers' Evan Bouchard during the same stoppage. The teams will play again Thursday in Edmonton. Our poll question for EMJ Marketing today is, should Connor McDavid be suspended for the cross-check to the face of Garland? I'm just going to go down and say no. Over 70% of our respondents, though, were saying yes, and I just can't figure out discipline of any league, particularly the National Hockey League. I don't know what they want. I don't know what they look at. He got a match at the time, AJ, so I don't know what more he needs, but how are you voting on that, and what did you see?
I mean, he probably should be suspended, but I'm going to probably, even though he probably should be suspended, I'm going to vote with you because I still think there's a place. You got to protect the stars. And the problem with no fighting, and I understand why, there's not as much, and I get it, it's not like it's banned, but let's be honest, there's not much fighting in today's National Hockey League, and we know the reasons why, and they're sound reasons for sure. But part of the problem is a guy like Connor Garland could ride Connor McDavid, thinking it's a rodeo as a star player in the league. And if he gets suspended here, what's to say the other 31 teams in the league don't just say, well, I'm going to do the same thing. I didn't get penalized for it. I'm just going to keep trying to drape myself all over the best player in the game. And, not only am I maybe not going to be called for it, but he might get a suspension out of it. Like that's not the way it should work. So while he probably should be suspended because it was a suspension-worthy cross-check, someone's got to protect these guys. And with fighting not really as big a part in the game anymore, I mean, that wouldn't happen to Wayne Gretzky because Dave Semenko would have punched Garland's lights out, and that would have been it. He wouldn't have dealt with that to the same degree that the star players have to deal with it now. So, yeah, it's frustrating. People come to see the star players. They don't come to see Connor Garland's a good player. I take him on my team every day. So that's not a knock on Connor Garland. But let's be honest. People pay to see Connor McDavid. They're not paying to see Connor Garland. And to me, that's the problem with this. And that's the line that the NHL has to walk here, knowing that if they do suspend McDavid, that all of a sudden it maybe gives a green light to other players to say, well, I'm going to do whatever it takes to frustrate this top player, this star player, and maybe it's going to be to my benefit, my team's benefit, and he's going to do something like that. McDavid's just trying to protect himself in the end.
And was frustrated, too. And, he'd had enough. AJ, you always do such a great job, man. Thanks for jumping on with us. Stay warm up there in the nation's capital, man. I'll chat again soon.
Always a pleasure, Roddy. Take care.
All right, everybody. It's you and me the rest of the way to the top of the hour after this break. Mike Richards coming in hour 2. So get your comments and questions ready of all of what we've talked about today and more. We'll be right back here on the Game Plus Television Network, streaming live, and, of course, podcasts, wherever the best podcasts are found.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house. Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Hi, my name is Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
From cash spiels to grand slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
It is the RP Show. We are not there in Florida, but normally we are. We're broadcasting live from Chicago today, up here on a little bit of a working vacation, I guess they can say. Well, we're on the air, so I guess we're working, but a couple of Blackhawks games. And as I said, it's you and me the rest of the way here in hour one. Mike Richards coming up in hour two. Tony from Cochrane, Alberta writes in regarding this weekend's NFL playoff games. He says, well, there goes my Lions versus Bills Super Bowl prediction, but now rooting for Commanders versus the Bills. Go Washington. As I read that, I got the vision or mental image of when you rip up your 50-50 tickets, throw them in the air. Oh, so much for that. So much for mine. I had a Detroit, Kansas City Super Bowl, and that's not happening. Let me just walk this back for a second. I had a list of notes that I wanted to get to with AJ, and I didn't even get to all of them. The one thing on Saturday, the NFL was a write-off for me on Saturday because we were going to a Chicago deep dish specialty restaurant. It was all fantastic. Going to the United Center early to get into the Blackhawks store. Got my Connor Bedard bobblehead here that'll be on my desk back in Florida. Got my Blackhawks clothing because again, I'm not welded to any particular team. Point is, I wasn't watching any football closely. And then we get into the Blackhawks alumni suite to watch the game, and I'm there to watch a game. Vegas, for a period of time, was my favorite team. They're not anymore. And of course, I wanted to see what Connor Bedard was doing. Now, Chris Chelios was watching the football game with the fervor of any other Detroit Lions fan. And oh my goodness, was he upset. But in the moments that I was checking social media from the people that were watching the Kansas City-Houston game, it was all about the officiating. And not only the perceived calls that were against Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs quarterback, but I also saw the video of him stepping out of bounds and then basically flopping, and getting the call. Stuff like that doesn't endear you to the fan bases of any other teams or the players on any other teams. But I can relate this to hockey. The Florida Panthers last year, they haven't done as much this year, but they were flopping all over the place. Diving, as they say, and I hate that. But who won the Stanley Cup? The Florida Panthers. Who's going to be appearing in another Super Bowl? The Kansas City Chiefs. They get the calls. You can like it or don't like it, but it happens. That was the furor coming out of Saturday, because you can watch bits and pieces, follow on your phone. As you know, there's nothing quite the same as watching the game from start to finish. And that's what I was able to do on Sunday with the NFL games, but not on Saturday. So I'm kind of going with what everybody said. And it's interesting, too, by the way. Hey, here's Lou Gamblin writing, and he says, hey, Lou, we got to get Lou on the air, by the way, guys, if you're listening back in the studio. Captain Lou from the Captain Lou Sports Network. I'm still in a little bit of mourning over the Lions game, but hey, it still was a very good year for Detroit. Those are the tough ones. Yeah, Lou, thanks for checking in from Detroit. We got to get you on the air this week. Lou is a media guy, but so many of these fan bases, Vikings fans too, taking victory laps all year long. These historic games, 14-win teams going against each other in the last game of the regular season. Neither one's still alive. What's the lesson in that? Yeah, you can play your best and try to play your best in the NFL regular season, but do not empty your tank. You still got to save the best stuff for the playoffs, and that's what the Chiefs of all teams know. And that's another thing that I wanted to. You viewers are going to have to answer my questions, because I'm going to bring them up, and AJ's not here to answer them. But number one, do you believe, eventually streaks have to end, but the Kansas City Chiefs have beaten the Buffalo Bills 3 straight playoff meetings? There's a reason for that. They're better. And if you want to talk about a curse, like Chris Chelios said with the Detroit Lions, there's that whole thing too. That whole spiritual voodoo woo-woo stuff. Not to mention the science and the history. It all works together, telling me that Kansas City wins this weekend. And then the other thing is the weather games. I saw somebody putting on social media that, somebody from the CFL office actually, that these cold weather games make me miss the CFL. Well, sure, enjoy what's in front of your eyes, for one, but I did not think the LA Rams were going to come back to the degree that they did and put a scare into the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. The Eagles just looked like they were playing in July on natural grass. They had no traction issues. They weren't falling down. They weren't turning the ball over. The Baltimore Ravens don't have that excuse. They're a cold weather team too. But just for fun, it popped into my head while watching the game Sunday that you should always bet on the cold weather team in cold weather, i.e. Eagles, Rams. Give me an incident where a Sun Belt team came in, won up north in NFL history and won. Like, I'm sure it's happened, but it doesn't happen regularly. We're going to have to take a break and continue with this after the break. But where it gets fun, but also dicey, is in the CFL, where every team's a cold weather team. If you're trying to make a prediction, then what happens? But I remember 2010 West Final. We've talked about it a lot on this show, right? Jeff, the Stamps fan. Saskatchewan Roughriders went into the Calgary Stampeders facility where it was minus 27. We had a returner by the name of Ryan Grice Mullen, who came from Hawaii. We dressed him that game. We had him returning kicks all year, but only in that game. He was beaten before he left the locker room. Fumbled it. Remember, into our end zone. Jarrell Freeman jumped on it, our linebacker, playing on the return team, or else we probably lose the game. He didn't return kicks in the Grey Cup the next week when it was minus 20. You look at the players that aren't used to playing in those conditions. If you were a betting person, because a lot of guys don't like it and a lot of guys don't mind. We didn't get to that sports update. We'll do that when we come back. Thank you, John. I haven't even got to my Chicago stories. He says, looking great, Rod, in Chicago. Did you get some pizza yet, bro? We've been to 4 pizza places, my guy. And could have made it a 5th today, but the friends that we're with, sounds like they're pizzaed out. But you know that I never get pizzaed out. So we've been to 4 deep dish places this week. We'll be back in a moment with a sports update. Mike Richards coming up next hour. We're live on the Game Plus TV network, streaming live, and podcast wherever the best podcasts are found.
Hell yes.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
From cash spiels to grand slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
We are in the U.S., but not Florida. We're broadcasting live from Chicago today, and it's been fantastic. Minus 24 degrees Celsius with the wind chill, just in case you wanted to know. Probably worse where you're watching from, so I'll stop bitching. Just to wrap up our quick 6 show topics, because we didn't even get to them all. Ohio State and Notre Dame will meet in the College Football Playoff Championship game tonight at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Both teams survived embarrassing regular season losses to make it to the game that will end the longest season in college football history. Ohio State will be playing for its first championship since 2014, and Notre Dame for its first since 1988. And I'm going to throw this in again. I mentioned it with AJ. The Edmonton Oilers and Vancouver Canucks may learn today if Connor McDavid and Tyler Myers receive additional discipline from the NHL for their match penalties assessed in the dying seconds of the Canucks' 3-2 home win on Saturday. Chris Jarl is watching in, where are you at, Chris? Surrey, BC. He says, come on. McDavid protecting himself from Garland. They got twisted up. Garland accidentally on purpose took his time getting untangled. Happens a dozen times a year. Both McDavid and Myers should sit a couple of games. Sitting Myers will help the Canucks. Well, again, this goes back to perspective. AJ's an Oilers fan. So, of course, he doesn't think McJesus should be suspended. Chad in Lethbridge writes in, he says, loving the way my Habs are playing, hoping the new goalie Dolbus, interested to see what moves they make at the deadline. McDavid and Myers should get suspended. Yeah, it's the hockey time of year. That's what people are into. I see that there's a debate raging in the comments about the Trump inauguration and Canada's not for sale. That's not what we do here, and you guys know that. But you're more than welcome to continue chatting it up in the YouTube chat, but don't expect me to talk about it. And I know you know that. Oh, Tony from Cochrane says, I would love to add the Bedard bobblehead to my collection. Have 6 Flames, including Iginla, Bobby Clark in a Team Canada jersey, Calvin Anderson stamps. I'm glad to see there's another bobblehead nerd out there like me. It was only $25 in the Madhouse on Madison store at the United Center. You wouldn't believe what they're doing in Florida with the Panthers. If you want to buy the latest bobbleheads, that includes Sergei Bobrovsky because he's never had one, you have to buy tickets to 4 games plus the bobblehead. Just the way they're doing it. Or you can buy them in the store. It's like $75. John in Winnipeg writes it. He says, Andrew Harris is now a coach in Saskatchewan. Welcome to the green side.
How about that?
We did cover it. We did cover it earlier, John. For your purposes, we can go. It was right at the start of the second segment of today's show, coming out of the first commercial break. But as we come back into hour 2, I'm here to talk about whatever you all would like to talk about, whether it's NFL playoffs, because I don't think we're done with that, NHL tonight, more McDavid. And Mike Richards has a lot of NFL thoughts. He'll be joining us in the second segment of next hour. And yeah, stick around after this brief pause, everybody. We'll be right back here on Game Plus TV and the streams.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
IKS Game Day wishes to congratulate the City of Estevan and Affinity Place on their brand new center ice display. This state-of-the-art score clock features 5 LED faces with full motion graphics, scoring integration, and our new Halo mounting system. If it's time for an upgrade, let us show you how to deliver the best fan experience. You can find us at iksgameday.com.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Pedersen Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show.
So what was it like coaching the Panthers in the 90s at the old Miami Arena? And he said it was in a bad end of town, and the police told him, when you come to a red light around the arena, don't stop. Keep rolling through because they'll come and steal your car. And he was driving an 86 Toyota Corolla. So he said he came up to a red light, and he didn't stop. He rolled through the red intersection, and some local yelled at him, "Don't worry, we wouldn't steal that piece of garbage."
This is the Rod Pedersen Show.
It's hour 2, everybody. We're broadcasting live at a brand new week from Chicago, Illinois, and specifically the Residence Inn by Marriott in downtown Chicago. It's a first time for me, and I'm sitting here saying, what took so long? Oh, my God. Is this a great city? It's just you and me for this whole first segment. I know that it won't be hard to get through 16 minutes talking sports. And then coming up in segment 2, Mike Richards will be with us, the iconic Canadian sports broadcaster out of Southern Ontario. But he's got a lot of NFL takes. And actually, while we're sitting here, guys, do you want to hit the quick 6 show horn, please? And we'll just re-up where we were for those that joined us late. Here's what we've covered so far. AJ Jakubec was with us for a portion of last hour because, again, Moose not here. Moose Dupont, busy broadcasting curling on the frozen tundra. It's cold enough here in Chicago, I can tell you that, minus 24 Celsius, but nothing like where Moose is and wherever you people probably are. We talked about NFL leftovers. I'm going to go over that again. We're down to 4 in the NFL playoffs, the final 4, after a pretty good weekend of football, wouldn't you say? Division playoff weekend. NHL leftovers coming out of the weekend. That's why I'm here in Chicago to catch 2 NHL games with the Blackhawks. Point 3, breaking news from the Canadian Football League. And if I had my bell here, I would ring it. The Saskatchewan Roughriders have named Andrew Harris as their running backs coach, and that is come out of nowhere. And quite frankly, I'm having a lot of fun with the fact a lot of the Roughriders people and media poked a lot of junk at Andrew Harris when he was nailed for a PED violation some years ago with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, to the point that I was called by the Bombers and asked to lay off. So I did. Others didn't, who are still there. So I'm just kind of wondering how that's going over today. The national championship goes tonight, OSU versus Notre Dame. Our studies show, our analytics and market research show, you're not really into it as an RP show viewing audience. You'll probably watch it, but you're not totally into it like these other things. We're still waiting, I'm assuming. Clark, you'll let me know if Connor McDavid gets suspended or Tyler Myers for their hijinks in the Oilers-Canucks game the other night. That's our poll question today. should Connor McDavid be suspended for his cross-check of the Canucks' Connor Garland on Saturday night at Rogers Arena in Vancouver. I'm voting no. Over 70% of you saying yes. But again, I'm just an old school hockey guy, and that's why we're going to settle into this segment here right now. And because we went fast last hour. That's what we do. Hour one recaps the night before or the weekend. Hour two, we look ahead and tell a few stories. Navy Dawn writes in from Ottawa. He says, Chicago is a fantastic city. The downtown architecture is amazing. Guy, your lips to my ears and God's everything, man. This is one of America's grandest cities. And like you, I'm like you, Navy Dawn. We've been to a few. And I was kind of sitting there going, St. Louis is a great city. Phoenix is a great city. Dallas is a great city. New Orleans is a great city. How come there's not as many movies and TV shows based out of there like there is Chicago? Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Home Alone, The Untouchables for TV series, Perfect Strangers, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like literally the list goes on and on. It's such a cool town. I don't know what it is. I mean, you could have deep dish pizza anywhere, but it's a Chicago thing. The buildings are amazing. The sports, don't get me going on the sports. People, again, where I come from and spent a half century, Saskatchewan, there's one team, one. In these major U.S. cities, let's just take Chicago, for instance. Everybody's going to take on the Bears. They're really down on the Bears for good reason. They haven't made the playoffs forever, and they're not going to for forever. We went up to Wrigley Field yesterday, the most iconic ballpark in baseball. Here in Boston, obviously, Fenway. Just cool to be there. And I'll say again, I've never been here. Colder than I'd like, but I've experienced colder. And then you go to the Madhouse on Madison, Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan, statue in the middle of the facility. Statues of Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita outside. This is a hockey town. Trust me, I'm landing the plane here. BW in Edmonton writes in, hashtag squirrel moment. He says, Rod, have you been able to meet up with Connor Bedard while you're in Chicago? Apologies if you already answered this. BW, you watch this show every day, and I think you're the greatest. You need to get a prize for how much you've watched this show. But you also probably don't know this about me. When I go into a town, I don't look up the guys. I don't. If they know that I'm here, they can seek me out. But I'm not that guy. Like, for instance, all my media buddies from Canada, when I was bound to be working out with Joe Girardi and Boca Raton, you got to get him on the show. I don't want to hassle people. Largely because I don't like to be hassled. So, no. There was a chance the other night when we were in the Blackhawks alumni suite that we might have spent some time with Tom Bedard because it was the dad's weekend with the Blackhawks. But that didn't happen. Connor's dad, that didn't happen. I'm fine. Because the interesting part of the whole thing was, and I told this story an hour ago, Chris Chelios was hosting us. What a nice guy. I was around Chris Chelios the night in Moose Jaw. Moose Jaw Hockey honored him as the most famous, probably Junior A alumni ever coming out of the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. I was there, but I didn't spend any time with him. I was in the room. Everybody else was busy fawning over Chris Chelios in Moose Jaw. Here Saturday night, there was only a few of us. So we got to spend some real time. But then 2 alum came in. One of them, he mumbled his name. Grant. Oh, okay. I'll have to wait and listen to him talk to figure out who he is. Ended up being Grant Mulvey, which probably doesn't mean a lot to a lot of our viewers, but as he explained to me, he was on the RPM line in the 80s with the Chicago Blackhawks, Terry Ruskowski, Rich Preston, Grant Mulvey, RPM line. I'm like, Rich Preston? Rico? He was our coach with the Pats from 95 to 97. He's a mentor of mine. Boom, boom, boom. Away we went. And then Kyle Calder shows up, played with the Regina Pats, 95 to 98. I called his games. Kyle Calder was in the suite. All of a sudden, boom, it's a hockey town. And while there have been some dips here lately with the Blackhawks, the Bears don't have 3 Super Bowl titles in the last decade like the Blackhawks have Stanley Cup titles. And the Cubs and White Sox sure the hell don't. With the Bulls, are they even still playing? So the Blackhawks are kind of still riding the brand of the Taves, the Canes, the Duncan Keiths, the Patrick Sharp. They're still riding that. And as I said last hour, Saturday night in that barn, Chelios, we were all inside the suite. He's like, we got to go outside. It's a big deal when the team comes out and they sing the anthem. Guy, that place was coming off the hinges, the Madhouse on Madison, for the worst team in the NHL. And the thing was, sitting there listening to those guys talk about Bedard, they watch him play every game and they nitpick all these things because that's what hockey people do. And that's why I kind of feel bad for Bedard. But you know what? Austin Matthews went through it. Connor McDavid went through it. Sidney Crosby went through it. That's the one thing the fans don't understand about stars like that. To be honest, it translates to life too. But you all think they got such a great life. But these guys wake up every single morning and have to prove themselves over and over and over and over. That's just what they do. It's what makes them great. But Bedard's got all these haters now. Celebrini's better. These guys in the suite the other night weren't saying any of this. They're Blackhawks fans and alum. And they don't want to get on the bad side of the team. They weren't nitpicking or they weren't calling down Bedard. But they're like, he needs to be better here. He needs to be better there. That's what hockey people do. That's what sports people do. Yeah, John in Winnipeg says that anthem singer is amazing in Chicago. Guys, he was singing from his toes all the way through. And the whole place was shaking. Sellout, United Center for the worst team in the NHL is what I was saying. We, aside from some pretty big playoff games the last couple of years in Sunrise, it doesn't even come close. And this was Vegas-Chicago on a Saturday night, largely a meaningless game. Navy Dawn says, preach, Roddy. Wrigley Field. Wow. No. This is an unbelievable town. It was like Nashville, which I'd been before, but we were there last month. 2025 is the 100-year anniversary of the Grand Ole Opry. Like, we got to come back. We'll come back in the summertime where it's even better. Carlos in Indianapolis writes, and he says, when you put your heart and soul into something, people notice. That's why you're here every day, Carlos, right? You put your heart and soul into the viewership, and we put our heart and soul into the viewing. Which, by the way, that's my Chicago stories. I'm in love with the town. Would I ever live here? Probably not. Florida's my thing. But it sure is a great place to visit. Bummer Boy in Calgary writes in, he says, the full throttle cheering during the anthem is strange. I'm not going to say it's not strange, but it's still pretty awesome. It's especially when you're there. And don't talk them down because they're cheering their ass off during the national anthem. It was cool as hell. Blair in Calgary writes in and he says, hello, Rod. In 1993, I was lucky enough to get to Chicago and to see 2 games in Chicago Stadium. What a crazy city and what a great place to watch a hockey game. The national anthem was worth the price of admission. Only bad part was Wayne Mesmer, the great anthem singer, was shot that night, and I don't believe he ever sang again. What a shame. Blair, maybe you were the unlucky charm. Never heard that story. That's a wow, as they say. I guess I'll play NHL breakaway bets with Mike Richards, who will be joining us in the next segment when it comes down to the National Football League. C. Lightning writes in, says, used to like the organ music at hockey games. They now play the taped organ music, but they completely got rid of the organ player and even the tape music in Sunrise. They didn't play it anymore. Yeah, don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened. Those were the good old days. Back to where we were. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills will take on Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game for their fourth playoff matchup in 5 years. Josh Allen ran for 2 touchdowns, and the Bills beat Lamar Jackson and the Ravens 27-25 in a divisional game on Sunday. Snow weather game there, and same thing in Philadelphia. It'll be Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, and the Philadelphia Eagles hosting Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders in the NFC Championship game. The Eagles advance for the 28-22 victory over the LA Rams on Sunday. They'll be home next week because the 6th-seeded Commanders upset the number 1-seeded Detroit Lions 45-31 on Saturday night. And for the benefit of those that weren't watching earlier, Chris Chelios was beside himself, spitting mad as a Detroit Lions fan watching that game in our suite Saturday night and said, "They're cursed," Chelios said about the Detroit Lions. And Mike Richards said he's going to have a lot to say when he joins us in the next segment. I'm just dying to know what he has to say. These cold weather games, we've all been following football for a long time. And when you look at the numbers, you look at the press releases the NFL sends out, and for that matter, the CFL, the stats, the history. Like, for instance, Kansas City's beaten Buffalo in 3 straight playoff games. Will it be 4 this weekend? I kind of think so. But to talk about defensive numbers, yards per carry, completion percentages for quarterbacks, I'm just throwing these out off the top of my head. They don't really mean anything when the ground gets frozen and the snow gets flying and the wind gets up. Because what it still comes down to, and I wonder if you can teach this. Mike Richards has coached some football. He might have a take on this. How do you teach not to turn the football over? Because the 2 teams that won on Sunday didn't turn it over one time. Buffalo did not. Philadelphia did not. And it was impressive that the Rams mounted that late rally because I didn't think they were even going to get close. They lost 28-22, as I just said, but they were slipping and sliding, defenders falling. They were turning the ball over. LA clearly not used to playing in a game like that in Philly. The Eagles were ready for it. And I just can complain about it till the sun goes down, I guess, or till the cows come home. But they still got to play those games. They will always play those games. I guess the point is I would really hate to be betting on them. Because while we spend a lot of time talking about the odds and who's the favorites and the underdogs and stuff, I don't actually put money on it. If I did, I'd be pissed. And certainly wouldn't be able to predict the winners. These games on the weekend came down to turnovers, and they pretty much always do. But we'll look ahead to this, I think for the first time ever, the earliest in the week, we're going to look ahead at next week's games in the NFL because that's the championship games this weekend and whatever else Mike Richards would like to talk about. We are live from Chicago today, the Windy City, and your input is welcome as well. 902-518-3033. Vote on our poll. Should Connor McDavid be suspended for his cross-check to Connor Garland's face Saturday night in Vancouver? We're live on the Game Plus Television Network, streaming live and podcast wherever the best podcasts are found.
The live sports experience is changing. Teams and facilities are under pressure to provide online and in-venue entertainment. IKS Live has the right team to deliver. We provide service across North America and produce the best fan experience, in the seats or streaming to you. IKS Live continues to bring you the best seat in the house.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
From cash spiels to Grand Slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Hour 2 brought to you by Culligan Water. Drink clean, live green. Filter your water for a healthier tomorrow. Culligan Water, a proud sponsor of the Chicago Blackhawks. And also the Rod Pedersen Show. Hour 2, you can check out Culligan Water of Regina. In fact, visit CulliganRegina.com. Mike Richards, the inimitable Mike Richards, joining us. How you doing, Mike? I can't hear him. Is it not just, it's just me? Oh, Clark says they'll work on that. Would you mind? Please and thank you. Here, we got them all primed up and ready for Mike Richards, and the boys say we don't have it. We'll work on that. Tony from Cochrane, Alberta writes in. He says, Rod, did you know Bernie Kosar is a part owner of the Panthers? Bernie is in bad shape. I was not aware of that. Okay, we got Mike Richards now. Sorry, but hey, now take 2. Mike, we're down to the final 4.
No, it's a huge day. A lot of people thought this day wouldn't come, but look how great it is. I've made so many great decisions, and people said, what's it going to be like? I'll tell you, it's going to be exactly like Regina. What a great place. A fabulous place, Regina. Oh, I've been there many times. It's going to be the 51st state, going to be a beautiful place, but we got to get rid of the NDP. I mean, New Democrats, the old ones were terrible. They did a very bad job. Why would you want a new one?
Oh, no. You've added to your repertoire. You put a little work into this, Mike, the president of the United. Actually, yeah, this is the dance. I was looking at it the other day going, it's like flossing with like a skate lace through his ears.
Yeah, it's like when you go to the gym. It's like when you go to the gym, you get stuck beside those old guys who seem to love that towel routine. And a little too close to where you're changing. I don't know what that is. Yeah, let's talk about what everyone's talking about, and we'll start with the Buffalo Bills and the Ravens game last night, which was, for here in Southern Ontario and for all the Bills fans, Bills Mafia, that was a huge win. And really, I think in some ways it was very reflective of a Josh Allen who really is understanding the moment and not trying to press to make that moment. He understands where the ball has to go. He's just got this poise about him. And look, I've been a fan of his, since he was a high school kid, and him and his dad were sending out videotapes, hoping to get anyone just to take a look at him in NCAA football. I mean, this is a really wonderful story. He's a great dude. I like what he represents. His teammates love him. He's great for the city of Buffalo. But I take a look at a Baltimore team that it doesn't matter how much they pay. It doesn't matter how good their athletes are, and they've got a couple of the best athletes in the entire league. They can't win. They can't win. It's a really weird scenario, and I'll get to Buffalo, Kansas City in a second, because people are going to say, well, wait a minute, what about the whole not winning thing? I really don't know. People want to point blame, and of course, Mark Andrews had historically probably one of the worst moments, and we've seen some bad ones in big games in the NFL, and I felt so bad because he's going to be on the top 10 and the bloopers of all time and the worst Super Bowl and blah 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 until the end of time. He will take that to his grave. It's really too bad. But the difference in these games where the teams are so good and they're well coached, it's going to come down to either penalties, special teams, or that one significant play. Now, in this case, Andrews got caught on two of them. There was a bad fumble at midfield that cost them, and if he catches that ball, they probably at least get some points. They probably end up winning that game. But Baltimore has a very difficult time. I don't know why. Usually when I look at things that fall through, I go to the sidelines. I look at the coaches. I look at, for instance, the Detroit Lions. And not only did they have a bad performance, but they got exposed. They really got exposed, and that hasn't happened really at all this year. But you got to hand it to Washington, and for Kingsbury, it's real retribution for him, considering what he went through in Arizona and just what people thought of him. But again, at this time of year, and Rod, you've covered a lot of football. The things that matter at this time of year, and again, this is what has haunted Baltimore. I take a look at that Philadelphia game, and for me, there's certain things in football that are a premium. They're the things that matter. They're the things, if I'm an owner, I'm going to pay a lot of money for. And I got news for you. It's not necessarily the quarterback. It has to be the offensive line. The entire universe of football starts with your offensive line. It doesn't matter if you have the greatest guy you've drafted, the next phenom. If you can't protect them, that's one thing. Number two, if you can't run block, you can't win. As good as Saquon Barkley is, that offensive line is like a chorus line in Broadway. The choreography of what these giant people do, they are so nimble, they're so smart, and they're so efficient at run blocking. The holes that he has aren't by mistake, folks. This isn't just big people pushing other people around. This is choreographed. There is a timing to it. When they pull, when they lead, everything they do is absolute precision, and that makes trying to stop a Saquon Barkley a nightmare, because you get pushed out of the way. I don't know one offensive line at this point right now in the season that's better than the Eagles. So if I'm looking at how this thing is breaking down, a very mature Josh Allen with his understanding of, the whole everybody eats, because this is what they have done. It is the communist world of football distribution where everybody gets a portion. And guess what? That is extremely difficult to stop when everybody has bought in. So there's your little caveat to the everybody eats thing. You can't have a Stephon Diggs then who's pouting on the sideline. You can't have a guy who's deemed to be your number one upset because he didn't get 7 catches. In Buffalo, they don't care. And for the first time, I really believe, because sometimes it's so close, what do? I'm a scumbag. I'm a degenerate. I'm going to start betting on player props because I know what numbers I'm going to get. But in this circumstance, Buffalo beats Kansas City. That I'm putting money on.
Based on attitude, because the Chiefs have won the last 3 in the playoffs. I'm sure you've seen the numbers already. And the Chiefs are getting all the calls. You didn't mention officiating, and that's kind of a big part of it, Mike.
Yeah, there is this enormous feeling about the calls that that I guess or Patrick Mahomes get. I do understand that. Some of it is just the way that the professional football has evolved in the protection of guys, to the point where there are times I'm unsure what the flag means. I'm unsure what a legal hit is when it comes to. Now, as soon as you get close to, you breathe on a quarterback's head, you're going to get a flag. You're going to get a flag for sneezing in his direction. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying that's how they call it, and there's a huge difference. So until there's some sort of alteration, I mean, there are calls that these guys who go in who have been playing football since they were 5, and even though they keep coming, from Pop Warner to high school to, wherever you play in college, they really do work on that whole issue because it is a costly penalty. It can blow up entire games. And I think that, to a degree, do they lean towards Kansas City? That's not the way I would put it. I would say that there is an extreme sensitivity to a Patrick Mahomes who, a lot of it, the entire league rests on his shoulders. And I am sure they don't want to take a chance. Now, does that mean you get bad calls? Yeah, that's exactly what it means. You get some real bad calls that I don't agree with, but that going in. I mean, we've all played sports in small towns where you go in and you're like, by the way, boys, we're not going to be getting a lot of favors here today. So you might want to take care of business aside from this player, aside from these moments. Look, I'm a huge Andy Reid fan. And in all fairness, looking at what Kelsey did, how do you not love this guy? How, up in the CFL, this is a league that has loved, our slot backs. We love our tough guys. We love cold weather. We like guys who lay it on the line, or as we like to say, giver. We like guys who giver. How do you look at Kelsey and just not think that is just a thing of beauty? It's a thing of art, that what he has done at this age. And I just don't think it's enough. I don't think they have enough guys. I don't think that they're going to be able to pull that trick, because Buffalo, even though maybe at times not the better team, Baltimore easily could be in this game. But it doesn't matter, because I think either team would have beaten Kansas City, at least in my opinion, unless there is something insanely bad about the refereeing in that moment. But I fully expect the Bills to win this football game. I expect them to win.
We say, the coaches say, don't put it in the hands of the ref. Easy to say, hard to do sometimes, especially when they're this time of year when the teams are so good. But, by the way, Greg is watching in Calgary. I think it's your favorite town still, Mike. He writes in, he says, "Hi, Rod. I vote for a suspension for McDavid." That's our poll today. Should Connor McJesus be suspended? The guy from Calgary says McDavid should be suspended. Got it. He also said, and I was saying, what's the last Sun Belt football team go north and win a playoff game? It's been a while. Greg says the Cowboys won a playoff game in Minnesota with the Roger Staubach Hail Mary in the 70s. So we're only going back 50 years. But in Arrowhead, it's going to be cold for both teams. And all I'll say, Mike, I'll bet you whatever you want to bet the Chiefs will win, because I learned last year, don't ever bet against Mahomes. Never, 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 never.
I would think in most years, I was in that boat too. I wouldn't have bet against the guy, except this time he has done a magnificent job with less. That's why they've won more games within, a touchdown or less than in recent memory than I can think of most teams, especially when you win them all. Like, I mean, let's not call it a fluke. He finds a way to win. In a one-off, though, I think, they've seen this team in their nightmares for the better part of 3-4 years. They've had better players than what they have right now, but they have something in Buffalo that every team sort of needs in football at this time of year, and that's belief. That's that is I mean, people say, well, isn't that kind of simple? I mean, everyone believes they're going to win. No. I think deep down, if you talk to some of those athletes, yeah, you go in but this is, and look, I'm in the area where I get to hear Buffalo radio. I see Buffalo television. You talk to people from Buffalo every day. They feel differently about this team because it is the, an Argos slogan. It's they're all pulling together. So when you do that, when you truly are selfless, like who's a more selfless team than Buffalo? There are certain things that we know when I mention a football team, the Lions, you're going, oh, okay, well, Jahmyr Gibbs has to get the ball. You get to get Amon-Ra, Laporta. You start going through this list, in Buffalo, they don't care. They simply don't care. They know when the number is called, Just everybody be ready when I call you. And if not, Josh will run, but he's not. You notice he's not playing hero ball at this moment. We are so used to that, and I hold my breath every time he does it. He doesn't have to, because the buy-in factor is so high that he can get away with throwing it to guys. You know, occasionally he throws the ball, and my son and I joke, "Who was that to? Was that Brad Skirvington? Who? Yeah, these names come up. These names come up.
Yeah.
Was that Reginald Feinstein? Who caught that ball?
Did you see Victor Newman take a swipe at Trump last week about the LA wildfires? I just wondered if you saw that by chance. If not, I'll send it to you.
I know that he can't stand him. And so when you get into these conversations with Eric, so Eric Braden, who plays Victor Newman, it can all be fun and games until if you if you go down that path with him, you're going to get, well, let me tell you something. I don't give a goddamn about that pumpkin-headed idiot. I've been through this. My country's been through a damn war. You think I haven't seen this before? Let me tell you something. I have, all right? and that's what you get, so I don't go near it. Not with him, I don't.
You have the impression of Victor Newman down to the wheeze when he's done talking.
Well, when he first came in, the first time I had to do it live, he tried to knock me off my game. He basically was doing what Larry Legend did. He was basically doing what Larry Bird did when you were playing basketball, the king, the goat of all smack talk. When I started impersonating him, he sits on the other side and he's going, look at me. What the hell do you think you're doing? Because whatever it is, it's not going to damn well work. Do you understand that? And next thing you know, he starts yelling at me in the same voice. Our good friend Jeff Lumby is listening to the radio. Goes, I didn't know which guy was which. I didn't know which one was Victor.
Hang on. You know, in this age demographic on Game Plus, I've said it a million times. We own the 55 plus age demographic. So those ladies know exactly, and I would say ladies because my mom was a huge Y&R fan. They know exactly who you're talking about. Victor Newman.
Oh, yeah.
You got him in the studio?
Yeah. Yeah, before TSN fell on the sword and killed themselves, he had come in for something probably to do with, I'm not sure exactly, but we knew because he was aware of what I had done, but I'd never met him. And so, you know, most of the time I'm really not that nervous about having to perform or do anything. But this is a guy who, as I said to him, you know, I've ripped you off for like 30 years. I said, I've stolen your voice for 30 years. I might owe you a check when this thing is done. And we became friends after that. You know, you'd get these calls from, you know, Hollywood or whatever on the cell phone. And he'd always say, Rod, he'd say the same thing every time, which just killed me. And I finally said, you don't have to say that anymore. You get these phone calls and it would say Burbank or something. I'm like, what's this? There'd be a message. You leave a message. It'd be like this. Mike Richards. This is Eric Braden. Victor Newman from The Young and the Restless. You don't have to tell me it's Victor Newman, okay? I think we're beyond that, right? I mean, you know what? I think we all know who that is. By the way, it was it's Don Cherry's favorite impression. As Ron McLean says, he goes, you know, he loved the Bruins and he loved Bobby Orr more than he loved his son. He said, but he loves your impression more than he loves Bobby Orr. And he goes, and that's saying something.
Well, we do have to break, but I thought it was in Calgary. Now that you say it was in Toronto, makes sense. Jeff, the Stamps fan, in 30 seconds, can you do pinball next? You got a pinball Clemens in you?
Well, yes, of course I do. I've seen what the Argonauts have been doing. And you know what? I think they are quite terrible. And you know what? I bet heavily against them. I didn't want to say that, but yes, I've made a lot of money when they make mistakes. And that is the truth. Yes, yeah.
Wow. Wow. I thought in this new era, you'd be out of business with some of your impressions. No. You're good.
No, we're going to bring it back. We're going to make it great again when the show starts, and it's going to be starting very soon. A lot of people are upset about it, but now they're crying like dogs because this show's going to be just so great, so amazing, maybe the best show. That's what they're saying.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Keep us in the loop.
I will, Rod. It's coming soon, folks. Trust me, they're working on it. It's coming soon.
Mike Richards, City TV, Calgary. We'll be right back here on the Game Plus Television Network. And we're also streaming live and podcasts wherever the best podcasts are found.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Canada's premier Junior A Hockey League deserves premier coverage, and at IKS Media, we have you covered for all things SJHL. SJHL Weekly on Monday, a live broadcast across our social media platforms where we interview your favorite players and coaches from across the league and preview the upcoming week. And on Thursday, SJHL Insider, where we look ahead to the weekend that will be and cover everything going on across the league. Catch it all on our social media platforms or on sjhl.ca.
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Are you guys live there? Should I go? Going to jump into a sports update here. What were you doing? Okay, look, let me know, guys, if we're a pain in your ass doing this show. Let me know. Anytime. Going to get into a sports update here. It's brought to you by Seat Giant. Stop paying U.S. dollars for games and concerts. Canadian owned and operated with Canadians in mind. Super Bowl, college football, Taylor Swift, Justin Timberlake. They've got it all. Use the promo code RPShow for 15% off. Now, check us out at SeatGiant.ca. There are 9 games in the NHL tonight. We're not going to play breakaway bets. Not today. 2 Canadian teams are in action. The Toronto Maple Leafs host the Tampa Bay Lightning in a battle of teams on 2-game winning streaks. It's on Amazon Prime. The Winnipeg Jets, who have won 4 of their last 6, visit the Utah Hockey Club, which has lost 4 of its past 6. There are 8 games in the NBA, including 1 in LA, where the Clippers will attempt to win their 5th straight game when they host the Chicago Bulls. Ohio State and Notre Dame will meet tonight in the college football playoff championship game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Both teams survived embarrassing regular season losses to make it to the game that will end the longest season in college football history. Ohio State will be playing for its first championship since 2014, and Notre Dame for its first since 1988. It's amazing to me, and it's the paradox that I'm dealing with mentally, and I don't really know where it goes, but it's like in America, where this show airs in 32 states now, Carlos in Indianapolis is a great example. He will attest. This is the biggest damn thing, this college football national championship tonight. In Canada, where I lived half a century, I don't really care. It's on, they'll watch, but the Leafs are also playing, so they're probably going to watch that. It's just quite polarizing in a way. Just everybody that I hang out with in Florida is just going bonkers about this game tonight, and people in Canada don't care. It's crazy. And we're down here in Chicago with our good friends Mike and Joanne Lee, who are from Saskatchewan, but also have a place in Maui, and how we all used to think that Canada, America, not that different. Majorly different. Majorly different. And pivoting to some Canadian Football League news. Andrew Harris is back in the CFL. The league's all-time leading Canadian rusher has joined the Saskatchewan Roughriders staff as running backs coach. The move reunites Harris with Riders running back A.J. Ouellette. The players were teammates with the Toronto Argonauts in 2022 and 2023. I don't know. It's stuff that I probably need to, I definitely need to let go, but I'm just trying to understand how this works. When Andrew Harris was a member of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and was nailed for a positive PED violation and was suspended for such, Rider fans tore him apart in the media too, and still do. That's what fans do. And I would have spent more time on this today than we did, but we had a lot of other more timely, more newsworthy topics than this, because it's just me sitting here now with you. I'll get into it a little more. I mean, I'm happy that the Blue Bombers felt that we had a relationship back then when I was voice of the Rough Riders, that they could get a hold of me and say, hey, would you mind laying off? So I did. I wasn't really that bad towards Andrew. There were many that were far worse with the Rough Riders, but they're still there. And they never laid off on Andrew Harris. Now he's working for them. How's that going to go? And then the caveat of that was when Harris ends up winning Grey Cups and the Bombers become all that, and they take away the flagship status of the CFL from Saskatchewan. They now own it. They became the bullies, and now they're tormenting me. Should I call them up and say, hey, guys, would you lay off? An example is I said that the trade to acquire Zach Caleros was a nothing trade because he was always hurt with us, and then leads them to 5 consecutive Grey Cups. Yeah, I was wrong. Do you want to lay off? I'm just asking, how does that go? Because they always pull that quote out. So I just don't know. In retrospect, maybe I wish I hadn't laid off. I don't know. Actually, what I do know is I'm sitting in Chicago now, ready to go to the Blackhawks and the Hurricanes tonight, and maybe therein is the point. It's all behind us. except for what's going on in Saskatchewan today with Andrew Harris there. But more than anything, I think the main thing there, the rest of the story, is that he's a Rough Rider now, and they'll all love him. The sports updates brought to you by Landmark Cinemas. Get more of what you love. Free movies and concession items with their reward program, Landmark Extra. Invitations to exclusive screenings, special events, and more. There are 3 rewarding programs to choose from that get you something extra with every movie purchase you make. Check out landmarkcinemas.com to register for free today. That whole incident, just so you know, because I don't want to sit here be the old man yells at clouds guy. I hadn't thought about it. I had not even thought about it since it happened. Certainly 6+ years ago when I left being the voice of the Rough Rider. And let's be honest, I learned of the Andrew Harris news today where we all learn the news. Instagram. It was the Rough Riders account that I saw that Andrew Harris was signed as the running backs coach. I'm like, where's the insiders on that one? A. B. He's coming from the biggest rival. Forget about the Toronto thing. He's coming from Winnipeg. It's going to be great. He's a great guy. It's all going to work out awesome. But it's like Wayne Gretzky going to work for the Flames. You know what I mean? We'll be back with Overtime right after this. Feel free to chime in with whatever you'd like. We're live on Game Plus, streaming live, and podcasts wherever the best podcasts are found.
From cash spiels to grand slams, club competitions to world championships, there's a lot to keep up with on the pebbled ice. Stay up to date with the Hardline Curling Show, your weekly source for everything curling, with the latest event results, breaking news, interviews with players, executives, and insiders, plus behind-the-scenes access you won't get anywhere else. Follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you don't miss a thing.
We're all capable of doing more. More speed, more reps, more commitment to getting every detail perfect. And that's why it's important we never miss a donation appointment. Blood and plasma donors are needed every day in Canada to support thousands of patients that rely on Canada's lifeline. We're asking you to join the Hockey Gives Blood Partners for Life team. Join today by downloading the Give Blood app or book online at blood.ca/HGB.
Sounds like he knows what he's doing a little bit.
As long as you're entertained. Aren't you entertained?
Welcome to the Create Space at IKS Media. Meetings, podcasts, studio. Whether you're here to collaborate or educate, our versatile meeting places, workspaces, and studios await. Your next big idea starts here. Make our space your space. The Create Space at IKS.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Here's how your business can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show. All you have to do is contact us, and we will tell you all about the dynamic and exciting marketing opportunities we have, utilizing a fully integrated 360-degree multi-platform. Imagine your business seen and heard across Canada on Game Plus TV and around the world on the Rod Pedersen Digital Network. You will use one of the most overused expressions in sports. You gotta be kidding me. Get your business involved. Contact the Rod Pedersen Show today.
Okay, we're back at it, everybody, for overtime. Again, the video shows Florida, but we are in Chicago today. Are you looking for the perfect place to perfect your shot? Look no further than Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary. With state-of-the-art shooting lanes, top-notch equipment, it's the ultimate training destination for players of all ages and skill levels. Whether you're prepping for the big game or just want to have some fun, Overtime Hockey Lanes has got you covered. 902-518-3033 is the number to text me here. I'll say this. This is clearly a hockey town. Never been to Chicago before. Hope to spend much more time here in the future. We're going back to Florida tomorrow. Clark is very graciously hosting the program tomorrow. He's got some of his good friends coming on the show, and it's a first for Clark here, but he hosts regularly scheduled shows with the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, so we wouldn't have him in the chair if we knew he wouldn't do a great job. I'm traveling tomorrow. Clark will be hosting the show. Moose continues to call curling because he loves curling. And oddly enough, he's very good at it. But as much as I say this is a hockey town, and it is, and I didn't really get into those talks yet, or stories from this show, but I started it earlier this hour. When Grant Mulvey came in and he kind of mumbled who he was. I'm Grant Mulvey. Found out through the course of our discussion, it was Grant Mulvey, played on the 80s Chicago Blackhawks on the RPM line. It's kind of a big deal when you have one of your initials on the of a hockey line, the RPM line. He goes, well, I was born in Sudbury but raised in a little town in BC. Little town. We're like, well, what was the town? Merritt. I'm like, I've been to Merritt, north of Kamloops, home of the Centennials, but they went belly up, and now they're in another league. And the one thing about those Canadians that are now living in U.S. markets, they're stunned when they come across anybody that knows anything about Canada or their history. So very quickly, we got into hockey stories and people we know and so forth. And then the very interesting thing was Kyle Calder, former Regina Pat great. He was a great with us, an all-star, played for the Chicago Blackhawks for a very long time. He was in the suite too. And as it turns out, I should take this opportunity right now to say hi to Bill and Diane. Hi, Bill and Diane in Manville, Alberta. Kyle says they watch the show all the time on Game Plus TV. Kyle Calder's parents, the former Chicago Blackhawk and LA King. So we had a really great time. And we're going to do it all again tonight at the Madhouse on Madison Blackhawks and Carolina Hurricanes. As one of my advisors said to me a month or two ago, hockey is your passion, but football is your business. I like the sound of that.
How about that?
So Tony in Cochrane, Alberta writes in, he says, last comment of the day for Tony. He has to leave. He says, the bigger boys of Notre Dame will upset OSU tonight. You heard it here first. He says, have a great day, y'all, and enjoy Chicago Run. Thank you, Tony. Nice guy, that Tony in Cochrane, Alberta. He's a big football guy. Navy Dawn in Ottawa writes it. He says, hockey has too much power over Canadians. That's just the way it is. Canadians need to better support their domestic leagues, but the American bread and circuses shows just suck us in all the time. The one thing, Dawn, and I'll only speak for me, I obviously wouldn't even try to speak for you. What I've realized is that's never going to happen. I know that you, and you know I love you, you're a great guy. You write in here and rant. We have an inferiority complex. We need to get over it. Canada's never getting over it. Okay. And as far as hockey, maybe that's why hockey has such a big power, because Canada is superior to the United States of America. And will it be forever? I don't know. America has other designs on that. And that was kind of a talk the other night in the Blackhawks alumni suite. The World Juniors have been won by the USA 3 of the last 4 years. And as Grant Mulvey said, this Four Nations face-off come February, I think Canada's going to win it. I'm going to be cheering for Canada. I won't tell you who Grant Mulvey thinks will win. But let's put it this way. If Canada doesn't win, I'll tell you right now, the thing will be, Russia wasn't even in it, so it doesn't mean that USA's better. That is going to be a war. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says in the 1950s, they used to call Winnipeg the Chicago of the North. What happened? Every city has its pluses. Every city has its negatives. Frankly, I think Moose Jaw is the Chicago of the North. Al Capone would agree. Thanks to AJ Jakubec. Thanks to Mike Richards. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Jim Young, Dirty 30, writing in from Armstrong, BC, says, this guy is great. This regarding Mike Richards and his impressions. He is great. Clark will do it tomorrow. Tune in then, everybody.
How about that?
Let's make some noise.